Welcome to NAIS Member Voices. I'm Scott Donaldson, Member Engagement Director at the National Association of Independent Schools. This month, guest host Brenna Foley speaks with Ryann Fapohunda, Director of DEIB and Director of Specialists at Beauvoir, the National Cathedral Elementary School in Washington, D.C. Ryann reflects on her journey from AmeriCorps' literacy tutor to school leader and the values that guide her work. She discusses fostering belonging in early childhood education, supporting faculty through inclusive leadership, and navigating the dual roles of equity practitioner and team leader. Ryann shares how she builds community with families, cultivates age-appropriate conversations around identity, and leads with authenticity, transparency, and care. She also reflects on mentorship, motherhood, and the importance of sustaining educators so they can show up fully for students. I'll turn things over to Brenna.
Thank you, Scott. So Ryann, you're the director of DEIB at the Beauvoir School. Maybe we could begin by you explaining how you ended up in that role.
Thanks so much for that question. My career journey started, I guess my first career in education would be dating back to an AmeriCorps program that I did in Chicago, which was called City Year. And so it was a 1 year of service where I worked at a elementary school as a third grade literacy tutor. And I really attribute my interest in pursuing education as a career path through that experience. And so, fast forward several years after that, I obtained a master's degree in special education and started student teaching and then working in schools, so suburban and public schools, before starting at my first independent school in Columbus, Ohio. And so I worked there for a number of years before transitioning to DMV, so DC, Maryland, Virginia area, where I worked for 2 independent schools prior to coming to Beauvoir. And so that has kind of been my trajectory from kind of graduating college until like present day, with a lot of different job titles in between and doing a lot of different things in schools.
That's amazing. What led you to want to focus on special education? I feel like that's such an underserved area that's really important.
Right. I think that is exactly why, just in thinking about what are the needs in education, and every school, every district, every program was really pushing special education. We don't have enough special educators in the country. This is an area for which we are looking for more educators. And so was really excited to lean into like, what are the needs that our nation has? What are the needs that our school has? And if that is the greatest need, then I'm happy to position myself to be able to support the needs that exist.
Yeah, that's great. And do you feel like that was a jumping off point for you getting more into DEIB work?
That's an interesting question. I think I've always approached the work that I've done in general in schools with an equity lens. And so I think certainly in thinking about neurodivergent students, what their needs are, the ways in which we're supporting them in schools started my thinking. I think as a Black woman and an educator, and in thinking about like the experiences of Black children in schools, particularly at that point where I was kind of starting my time in public schools and thinking about opportunity and access. I think all of those things lended themselves to me building a capacity and understanding and desire to really think about how do we support all learners, all students in school? How do we facilitate a greater sense of belonging? So I think, yes, to answer your question indirectly.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you're the director of DEIB, but you're also the director of Beauvoir's specialist team. So you're wearing both hats
Yes.
currently.
Yeah. Very independent school. Wear all the hats.
Yeah. And do you feel like the two work well together?
Yeah, I think they do. And I also think they respond to the interests that I have. I think people are always curious of the duality of the roles. And I think that was one thing that excited me about the position is I love thinking through a lens of equity. I love thinking about caring for individuals in organizations. I really also love leading a team. So like in my DEI capacity. I don't serve as a supervisor, but certainly in my director of the specialist team, where I supervise and support a team of 12 teachers, I do. And I think that has been really important to me, is just thinking about leadership and what does it mean to care for members of a team? What does it mean to support teachers in terms of showing up as their best selves at school, as instructional leaders in the classroom and different spaces? And so I think I love that I get to do both of those things. And I really frame it through a lens of I get to. So I'm really excited. I was excited when I applied for the position, the duality of the role, and continue to be excited by the opportunity to do both things.
Yeah, that's great. I don't feel as though it's often that we end up in positions that fully encompass our passions and our interests. And it seems like you hit the lottery on that.
Yeah, I feel very fortunate in that way.
That's great. So, what do you feel is the biggest difference from being in a teaching role to being in more of a leadership role?
Yeah, that's interesting. When I was a classroom teacher or when I was not in leadership, it's so easy, or it was so easy to always like wonder, like, why are we doing this thing? Like, why do we have this school change happening? Or why did leadership make this decision to start school at X time or have this program? And you kind of feel like there's like this secret behind the curtain, so to speak, where you're wondering how decisions are made, who is involved, who is the ultimate decision maker. And so I think in transitioning from both teacher, middle level management to senior administrator at a school. And so this is my second school for which I've been a senior administrator. I think through the teacher lens, it's the wondering around like decisions, how decisions are made, what does transparency look like? And then I think in leadership, the difference is being involved in having more access to and understanding what goes into making some of those decisions. Sometimes that I think people think are so glamorous that when you're in leadership, you're like, actually, that was a really hard decision. That was like a really hard thing. Or I had to have multiple conversations with multiple stakeholders to get to this point. And so, to your initial question, I think the major difference between being a teacher and being a senior administrator was just, I think, I was so excited by my first senior leadership position to have access, right? We always say, like, I want a seat at the table. And I was like, I finally got it. I've got a seat at the table. And then the question becomes, what are you going to do with that seat at the table, right? So, like, you may have been working towards something, positioning yourself for senior leadership and management. And then now that you have a seat, what are you going to do? Through what lens are you going to be making decisions? Are you going to be a transparent leader? Are you going to be somebody that is collaborative and invites partnership? So I think those are some of the things that immediately come to mind.
That's great. In your leadership role, do you feel those are things that you're bringing to your leadership style, sense of, I think you said, equity, and a sense of working together, bringing everyone to the table to make decisions?
Yeah, I mean, I think that lends itself to my natural leadership style. So I think I'm a highly collaborative person. I think I welcome transparency in receiving feedback as well as in giving feedback, really wanting to be honest and in sharing things, not leave people wondering, like, well, why did she say that thing? Was it somebody had asked, or was she really trying to say X? But just to be as direct as possible, I think I'm somebody that's of the belief you can say anything you want. It really just matters what the delivery is and the way in which you're saying that. And you can offer feedback, critical feedback, constructive feedback, wonderful praise in a way that leaves people with their integrity and their dignity and feeling like there was support and care that went into sharing that. Yeah, I mean, growing up, my dad would always say to me and still continues to say to me, like, Ryann, remember who you are, remember your core values. And I think my core values very much guide my leadership style, the way in which I interact with my colleagues on the senior leadership team, members of my team, parents, students, families in the community. And I feel fortunate to be in a place where I can be my authentic self as a leader and allow those core values to guide my decision making and the way in which I interact with individuals. And I think it's so wonderful because I think my personal values so deeply align with our school's mission and values as well. We have 4 life rules that are kindness, respect, responsibility, and honesty. And I think those go hand in hand, I think, with the way in which I lead and how I engage with others in the community.
That's great. Those are some great life lessons for your school to lead with.
Yeah, yes.
So, as you were making that transition into the leadership positions that you've held, what was the best advice that you received during that transition?
The best advice I've received, I think, has really been around you can't pour from an empty cup. And so, just in thinking about sustainability of teachers, of administrators. But when you have a team, you're pouring into them. You are the champion of them. You are the hype man or woman or individual for that team. And so, in order to be able to show up in that way, in order to be able to tag people out and say, I've got you, or you need to miss this class, you're sick, go home, I've got you. You have to have poured into yourself in terms of your own wellness and well being and in taking care of yourself. And some days that's just getting a glass of water and making sure you hit so many steps around the building. Other days that might be stepping away to go to a doctor's appointment. Some days that is caring for your child and knowing that, like, okay, if my own personal child is like in a good headspace to start the day, then I'm in a great headspace to start the day, which means I can really show up for my team in the ways that I need to. And so I think just that idea of like sustainability, and I think sometimes people get into a place where they want to brag about like how hard they work and how drained they are. And I'm like, that is not a badge of honor. Like, that is not what I'm striving for. I want to be able to work efficiently. I want to show up. I want to do my job well. I love the work that I get to do. I love that I get to be a mom of 2 young boys and a wife and a friend and an administrator. But by no means am I trying to project that I do everything by myself. I'm so drained. I'm so worn out. I'm doing all these things because I don't think that's healthy. I don't want to model that for my kids, other kids at the school. I don't want to model that for members of my team. I want them to see me setting boundaries, caring for myself, caring for my family. I think so often, even when people ask for a day off or I need to leave early to do this thing for my kid, I always say, great. Thanks so much for letting me know. Please make sure you're taking care of yourself and your family. Like, do what you need to, whether that's like in a meeting, stepping out and taking a phone call to check on the people that you love and care about, or to do that thing. Like, care for yourself, do the things that you need to. I think we should be doing those things.
Absolutely. And you've spoken to this a little bit, drinking water, getting your steps in. What are some other ways that you fill your cup?
Yeah, I am a pretty social person, I think. I love being in community. I love connecting with individuals. So from day to day, our school has an early learning center. So we have like babies at our school. So there might be a day where I'm like, I just want to go in and see those like infants and just like snuggle on those infants and say hi. And I think that brings such joy to me. I have a toddler and a kindergartner. And so I'm not in the baby stage, but I think that brings joy to me. I think stopping by the classrooms of members on my team or other teachers, not because I want anything, but just to say hi and see how they're doing. I also fill my cup by filling other people's cup. I'm very much a food person. So if there are any snacks ever that are on our campus, I know where they I know where they are, and I enjoy sharing that. Like, I'll put on my Teams chat for my team, like, hey, so and so brought baked goods. They're behind the front desk. Or I've noticed in the Beauvoir cafe, there's kombucha and chips. And then members of my team or other members of our community for whom I know like a particular like treat or snack or thing, putting it on a table and walking it to their class, even if they're teaching, just to say like, hey, I got this thing for you. Like, just wanted to give you a little sugar, a little brain power, a little whatever the thing is. And I think in moments of seeing somebody have a pick me up, that picks me up too, whether it's sometimes it's coffee, sometimes it's a treat, whatever that thing is, that also fills my cup as well.
And I can imagine that also fills your school's cup, that must create a great sense of camaraderie and good working conditions.
Yes, and well-fed people.
Well-fed people are happy people.
Yes, yes, no hangriness here.
What is your go-to snack?
That is a good question. We have pita chips here, which I usually love. There are these breakfast croissants. So on Friday, our school every Friday does bagels, donuts, and like French pastries. And there is a little pastry that I like. I don't know if it's called Queen Le Monde. Do you know what I'm talking about, that pastry?
I don't think so.
Okay, well there is a French pastry, and I'm probably saying it incorrectly, but it is so delicious, and that with a little espresso totally fills my cup.
That sounds delicious.
Yes, yes,
I feel
yeah.
like I need to fill my stomach with that right now.
Yes. See, if you were at Beauvoir right now, I would have a plate for you and coffee and whatever you love. If it's tea, it would be that thing.
That sounds amazing. I might have to come.
Yeah.
So, getting back into kind of your career journey, what would you say that you're most proudest in your work?
Yeah, I think a little bit building off kind of the core values, I feel really proud of the fact that I have grown into a place where I think my leadership is very reflective and authentic to me. So I think before coming into leadership, you're kind of eyeing heads of school and division directors and kind of looking and observing, like, what is the way in which they communicate with people or handle challenging situations? What is the frequency of meetings, or the ways that they connect or support their teams, or the way that they share hard feedback? And I think even recently I've been reflecting on my personal presence. So just like speaking publicly. And I shared, I am in a wonderful women's collective of women school leaders in independent schools and some beyond, but was at a gathering with women recently and just shared that I've noticed that over the years, I have gone from, I think, presenting myself in a way that I felt was the way school leaders should present themselves, and now speak in a way that is very authentic to myself. And I feel very proud of that. And I think that also is evident like in my leadership, but I think this kind of executive presence piece, I think living on the East Coast, I've been around a lot of school leaders that kind of have an East Coast feel, and I'm from the Midwest. And whether it's like talking with my hands or like saying the funny thing, sometimes I think previously I felt like, oh gosh, to like be a school leader, you've got to be serious all the time, and you've got to be poised, and you've got to have on a suit jacket, and you've got to conduct yourself this way. And that did not feel authentic to me, right? Like I was like, I love a good blazer, but like I'm tight and kind of like want to move my arms. Or recently we had an admissions event around belonging, and I was like joking and telling jokes and like walking in the audience and saying things. And I was like, this is so reflective of who I am. And I'm so glad that I'm in a place of comfortability to be able to do that and not feeling like my leadership style has to mirror that of what I may have seen other school leaders do and the way in which they present. And I attribute being able to do that and getting in a place where I can do that from seeing other school leaders, particularly women, who I think have led from a place of this is who I am, this is my school, this is what I bring to that environment. And I think that has really inspired me. And I feel really proud to be leading authentically, both as a school leader in the ways that I show up in public, in the ways I engage with people, whether it's on a stage and with an audience or one-on-one.
What would your advice be to someone who's looking to get that sense of authenticity in how they lead and present themselves?
Practice, practice, practice. I think the more you position yourself to have opportunities like that, I think the better. When I was working at another independent school in DC, I felt like public speaking was something I very much needed to work on. And so that was one of my annual goals that I had with my supervisor was I want to increase my public speaking skills. I want to be a better public speaker, not just at the board meeting, not just at the division meeting or team meeting, but I really want to feel that I feel comfortable and confident speaking in other spaces. And so my supervisor was very supportive, and I was going from conference to conference and speaking and doing presentations, which I think continued to like build up my confidence. Like, wow, I went to this national conference, and at first it was only 30 people, and then next year it was in a NAIS, and then the next year it was this regional conference. And so I think whether it's public speaking, continuing to position yourself for opportunities and practice that, whether it's within your school or more broadly, I think that that is really important.
Absolutely. And I do want to circle back and talk more about this group of women that you work with or meet with, because I think it's so important to connect with other women in leadership roles within your industries.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so glad you asked. It's a group called Excel, and it's a women's collective. And last year was the first year that I had joined. A few other women's school leaders had shared the opportunity with me, and it has just been such an amazing and transformational experience. I think women are such a small population of heads of school and school leaders. And I think whether you are in a male dominated school or like leadership team, or I think there's just such value and richness to like being in community. And I think being in a safe space amongst women where you can come together and you can share, like, hey, I'm chewing on this thing, or we're thinking about adapting a new schedule. Like, what do you think? And able to share and come together with thought leaders has just been really wonderful to me. And I think leadership can sometimes be lonely. And I think I did not know that before I went into leadership. But I think sometimes like you might be privy to information that others are not and not able to share that information, right? There are some things that are confidential or not ready to be shared more broadly. And it's not necessarily a secret, but it is holding confidentiality. Or as a leader, sometimes you are making decisions that are not well received and not appreciated. And that can be really hard. And so I think when you are in community with other individuals, and for me, I have found again such great value in being in this wonderful collective with other female leaders who are making similar decisions, just feeling like, hey, I had to give this hard feedback, or I shared this thing, and people who understand and get it and support you and affirm who you are. Because even though many of us have support outside of work in our spouses or significant others or our parents or friends, they don't always understand the nuance to schools or independent schools. They're like, what, wait, what, why did you do that thing? And I have really just found this group to be so wonderful.
Absolutely. That sounds so important to have. So I do want to talk a little bit more about DEIB work and what that looks like at your school. So you've been at Beauvoir for almost 3 years.
Yeah, this is my third year.
Wow. So what does your work look like at Beauvoir?
Yeah, from a DEI standpoint, thinking about our curriculum. So we have a DEIB curriculum at our school, and then thinking about what are the elements that we teach about belonging in an age appropriate way. And so supporting faculty and building background knowledge and being comfortable with that curriculum, also in supporting our parents. So we have a kaleidoscope committee, which is an arm of our parents association that partners with the school and my office to support DEIB efforts. So whether it's kind of aligning year to year priorities with our strategic plans and goals around inclusivity, that is a lot of my day to day work. Some is programming and thinking about a particular religious, cultural, or religious celebration or heritage month, supporting teachers in building their background knowledge and training around implicit bias and stereotypes. And this year, our DEIB theme is neurodiversity. And so we are doing a year-long exploration with faculty around neurodiversity. We're reading Neurodiversity Affirming Schools. And so a lot of the work that I do is in partnership with other constituency groups, whether that is thinking about admissions and outreach and how to ensure that our student body is reflective of the broader diversity of DMV and beyond, to supporting our curriculum, to identifying training for faculty and staff as we build our cultural competencies both individually and as a community. So every day is different, but really exciting work. And I think the work that fills me up most is in having conversations with students. I am just like reflecting on a lesson that I had with first graders last week around this book, The Big Umbrella. And so it's a big umbrella that expands to include hundreds and hundreds of people. And the kids are like, this is not real. Like, this is fiction. This can't really happen. And really, what I was getting at with students is helping them to think about how they can be the umbrella. So, an example was if a new student were to come to Beauvoir and there are only 21 desks in the classroom, what does it mean to make room for that person and make them feel a sense of belonging within our community? And the students, I pose the question to students like, what would you do? And some students are like, oh my gosh, we could build a new school. One student, and this is the one that really just pulled at my heartstrings. She was like, I would give my desk to the student. Like if somebody came and we had 22 students instead of 21, I would sit on the floor and give the student the desk.
That's so sweet.
It is. And I think helping students to understand, like, what does it mean to have classes and hallways and spaces where everyone is celebrated and everyone is welcome. We are a school with an Episcopal identity, and so we celebrate Christmas. And that is very present when we go to the National Cathedral and have a Christmas chapel. And there is a big tree in the lobby, and there's a lot of talk of Christmas. And I continue to ask students, what are some of the other winter holidays? So there's Kwanzaa and there's Hanukkah. And you know what? There are some friends that don't celebrate a winter holiday. And what does it mean to make those friends feel included when we continue to talk about Christmas all the time? We can be a school that celebrates Christmas and has our Episcopal identity, and that is so important to who we are. And we recognize that not everybody shares that same identity. And so continuing to have examples of things and have conversations and extend students' thinking around belonging in age-appropriate ways and conversations. I just love talking with students, hearing their thinking and how they process certain topics.
That's amazing. And I was going to ask about, the age appropriate, developmentally appropriate approach to DEI work, but I feel like you touched on that. We've been seeing growing polarization around DEI work.
Yeah. And again, I don't frame the work through the political lens because I think it's not about politics. It's about children and community. And so I think even though there is so much that has shifted nationally, DEIB is not a program or position. It is very much interwoven into the fabric of our school and in thinking about how children experience school and how adults show up from one another. So I think I view my work as thinking through the ways to create conditions through which that can happen, through which thoughtful communication with families, supporting teachers in age appropriate ways, and in anchoring the values and questions that might come up is really what I see as essential to my work. And I think it's interesting because we do live in DC, so we're naturally surrounded by a wide range of perspectives and national conversations. And I think, if anything, it's only reinforced the importance of us listening and slowing down and leading with care.
Yeah. Has any of the political discourse around DEI shown up in your school in different ways?
I think not in the ways that it would if we were a school with older students. So when I think back to, this is the first school that I've worked at that is exclusively a lower school. Every school that I have worked at before had a lower, middle, and upper school. And I think when you have older students in your school community, there are conversations that they're inviting, they're exposed to a level of news. Our students are not watching news, they're 4 to 8 years old. And so when I go back to what is developmentally appropriate right now and in this moment for our students, like, our desire is not to overwhelm our students with the problems of the world. It's to focus on being 4, like focus on being 4 and having fun. And there are going to be times when they get older that they are ready to have different conversations, but in the same way that I framed kind of belonging with the umbrella story, or in thinking about religious and cultural diversity, we really do want to make sure that we're having conversations that are appropriate for the ages of our students and really in partnership with families. And so our desire is always to do this work in partnership with families. And so in recognizing that parents are their child's first teachers, and I don't say exclusively parents, so grown-ups, so whoever might be raising a child, but that they are really that child's first teachers. And so wanting to give them opportunity to have conversations that they feel like are most appropriate, and be leaders of that conversation.
Absolutely. How can school leaders bring people with different perspectives together while still allowing for expression of different views?
I think by continually engaging in ongoing reflection and accountability. And for me, that lies in kind of always asking myself questions. So, like, what do students and faculty need from us right now? And in this moment, this at this point in time, in this climate, I often reflect on what does it feel like to be a member with a particular identity at our school and in the world at large. I'm always thinking about what are the ways in which community members see mirrors to themselves as well as windows, with the concept of windows and mirrors. And so I think continuing to like ask the questions, right? Like not shying away from difficult questions. And then I think using the answers to those questions to move into action. Well, if members of our community who identify in this way don't feel like they see windows and mirrors to themselves, what are we doing as an institution to change that? Or if we recognize that a particular population within our community feels like they do need something from us right now, what are the ways in which we're being responsive to that? So I think asking questions and then moving into action, if that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that leads into my next question, which is what do you feel are some of the most important ingredients that a school needs to foster a community that is inclusive and welcoming?
I think one is a desire to know and understand people. So, like, truly knowing a person, understanding what is important to them, what are the parts of their identity, what we need to honor and protect. Like, I think so much is like, what's the quote? When you know better, you do better. So, if a family were to share with me, and this is just like the smallest of examples. So, we at the start of the year have a hopes and dreams conference. So, prior to the first day of school, classroom teachers will have met with the grown-ups of every child in the school. And so that is a introductory conversation to start to build community, connection, understanding. It's an opportunity for parents to share, like, what are my hopes and dreams for my child for the year? That might be a social emotional goal, that might be an academic something, that might be I want my child to make friends. But it's an information sharing where families have the opportunity to really share the things that are important to their family, that are important to their child. We ask questions about, like, what delights you most about your child? Like, what are the things that you love about your child, so we can celebrate that in the classroom? We ask questions about, like, are there any special traditions or things your family recognizes or celebrates that you would like to see us recognize here in the classroom? I think it is such a wonderful opportunity for teachers and grown-ups, and I don't just say parents because not every child is being raised by their parents, and so I use that word grown up intentionally, but it's one way I think that our school intentionally builds understanding and community, and I think lays the groundwork for conversations that will then happen through the remainder of the year. And so that is one very small way in which I think our school does a really wonderful job of building community and trust. Like, we want to know what's important to you. If a family said, I was educated in an independent school and that is part of our family's identity, is like, we are independent school folks. And so as a result, we have these expectations around their academic experience, or we have these questions, like that gives a teacher a window into understanding what might come up in future conversations. And it doesn't, like, I know when we think about identity, we're often thinking about kind of the 8 major social identifiers. And I think there's so much more beyond that that kind of comes through in these conversations. So I think knowing people, knowing what is important to them, understanding what matters to them, and then honoring that and making it important to you, I think matters.
Absolutely. And do you feel that that applies as well to fostering a sense of belonging among faculty as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we very much, in the way that I said, you can't pour from an empty cup. Like, we are pouring into the adults in our community because we know they are pouring into the students. And so I see all of it as related. We care about adults, we care about students, and we are all in community together.
That's great. Sounds like a really lovely place to work and work with children. So, in terms of your students, and it sounds like Beauvoir does a great job of connecting with the students and their families, what are you seeing in terms of students' overall health and well being?
Again, our school is, we have an early learning center, but pre-K through grade 3. I feel really fortunate that we are at an age in kids' development where they're really happy and really excited and love to be at school. Our doors open at 7:50, and there are kids peeking through the windows, knocking on the doors to get in the school. And I think that is a really exciting time in their development in this kind of early childhood stage, and something that we work to preserve here at Beauvoir. I think our kids are really happy. I think certainly, like kids anywhere, they have rough days. And, I think there's so much national conversation kind of coming out of COVID, but I feel like our students are doing well. I feel like they're happy. I think teachers very much are still kind of coming out of COVID. Like, I feel like you can't get into too many conversations at any school where people don't say, "Hey, remember before COVID?" And so I think as adults, I think we are probably more focused on the kind of post-COVID than the kids are. But I think kids are doing really well.
That's great. And do you feel like the faculty is kind of still coming out of COVID? How is that affecting faculty well being?
Yeah, I think, of course, like you hear this national conversation and you read articles about, not necessarily with independent schools, but just schools in general, kind of like reading rates across the country, or changes that schools are observing in terms of skills students are coming with. So I think you continue to hear and see those things. And so I think certainly, like any school, like we are continuing to make ourselves aware of kind of what trends are happening, whether it's with students or what is being shared out kind of at a national level. I think faculty, each year, I think we get a year out more from COVID. I think faculty are kind of in a better place. I think people just, it's like the before and after. Like, people remember life before COVID and people remember life after COVID. I think faculty are happy and doing well. I also think schools very much are continuing to evolve and change. And I think not necessarily just because of COVID, but because, like, that is the work of schools. We continue to get better. We continue to find new and inventive ways to support students. And so I think faculty, I guess I don't really know how to answer the question as much as to say, I think schools, we just continue to need to be mindful of, like, what is the ask of, like, faculty, right? Like, what are we balancing? What are we asking of faculty? And if we're asking something, then are we taking something off? But I think just in kind of in alignment with, like, change management, like, there's so many things that are always evolving in schools, and that was the case before COVID, and it's the case after COVID. But I think just in being mindful of, like, what is the full scope plate responsibilities of teachers, and what are the supports in which schools and leaders are putting into place to both care for teachers, to ensure that their voices are heard, to ensure that we're doing things in service of our students. The reason why we're here, like we do this work with students in mind, but we also do it knowing that we need to care for faculty and with faculty in mind as well. And so I don't know that I directly answer that question as much as I think one thing just kind of working in schools is that there are always things evolving and changing. And so I think with that, you have to be mindful of the demands of teachers. I think historically, teachers have always been right. Like I feel like we are essential workers, right? Like I just think about going to work during COVID, like physically going to work when like all of my other friends were like at home, and I think that very much just speaks to the commitment, the hard work that teachers and educators put in, day out. And so with that, I think schools and leaders just need to continue to be mindful of like sustainability.
Absolutely. Where do you personally turn for inspiration?
Everywhere. Everywhere gives me inspiration. I mean, I am somebody who finds inspiration driving into work and like seeing the sunrise. I am somebody who walks and sees kids playing on a playground, not our school, and not our school playground, and get ideas about, ooh, there would be this really cool game that we can do at outdoor play. I think I'm just always thinking, I'm always seeking inspiration, and I think you don't have to go far if you're looking, right? So like this idea of like I don't need people to bring inspiration to me. I just find it in the way that I move throughout the world, whether it's like a Substack article or a quote somebody sends me, or I think I just continue to be inspired by like students. I continue to be inspired by my colleagues to try different things in my personal life, in my professional life, to think differently. I think there are so many places. A colleague shared a book with me that I'm reading now, The Secret Life of Trees, and I'm finding such great
I'm reading
inspiration
that
from
book right now.
trees. Really?
Yeah, that's so
Okay, we're
funny.
gonna have to do a book club, you and I. But like,
Definitely.
just I think I just find inspiration so many different places from podcast. And there was a podcast that I love that has since gone off the air. It was the Harvard Business Review Women at Work. And I found everything they shared to be so transferable to my work in leadership in schools. There's a modern manager podcast that I love that I also find to be very transferable in terms of the lessons, the skill sets, the learning. So I think I just find inspiration everywhere, always. Like even now, I'm like watching this mom like walk past my window, and I'm like, I'm getting inspiration from you. From what I don't know yet, but
I can feel it.
yes,
Feel the
yes, yes,
inspiration.
yes, I
Yeah.
do. So always thinking, always wondering, always. Yeah.
That's great. And that is such an amazing book. It's
Yeah. Yes.
so calming to listen
Hmm.
to. I'm listening to the
Yeah.
audiobook version. So you mentioned, so did you name the podcast that you were listening to?
So one is the Harvard Business Review Women at Work, and they have since had their last season, but I continue to go through and listen to old episodes. The other was the Modern Manager podcast. I have found that to be a wonderful podcast. And then I used to listen to the Moth. I love like like any like I get into these podcasts, and even if it's a story that has nothing to do with education, I'm always able to find elements that resonate with me or are applicable to like caring for people and being a human in the world.
Absolutely. And kind of the flip side of this coin, this conversation, what are some of the challenges that you've faced? What keeps you up at night?
I think for me personally, balancing leadership with motherhood has been something that I continue to like recalibrate like week to week, month to month, like just in thinking about the month that we're in now. Like it's December, it's holiday season, it's time to get gift cards and gifts for teachers and do the holiday rush of like caring for people, like gifting people things during the holiday, getting also thinking about like what does it mean to close out the year end at work? Like what things does my business office need from me to close out like my departmental budget for the calendar year? So I think being a mom of two young children, so I have a 6-year-old and a 3.5-year-old, I continue to, and it's not a challenge, more of an opportunity to think about from day to day, week to week, what is it that I need to serve my family, to serve my team, to serve, and it's never like a 50-50 split, right? There are days when I've got a 7:50 meeting that I'm leading for my team. My kids can go into their classes at 7:30 and it's like, we're all just running around. It's beautiful and chaotic at times, but like so joyful to be a mom, so joyful to be an administrator, so joyful to be in a place that I love and where my kids are cared for and I feel cared for. And I love the work that I get to do each day. But sometimes you just think about like, how many hours are there in the day? And how are we going to get this all done? We've got the baths and the dinner and the kids' activities. And I've got to work on this thing that has a deadline. And so just continuing to like think about like, what are the systems that I need that are helpful? In what ways am I going to give myself grace? And sometimes that is, I did not cook a home cooked dinner. Like we went to Whole Foods and went to the prepared section. Other days that's bath in the morning, not bath at night. So I think just kind of that balance of being a mom, being a school leader, and trying to have everything together and admitting that I don't have everything together.
Which is, yeah, I feel like that's
We're normal and we're human. And
very
yes,
normal.
yeah.
Absolutely. What do you feel has been your greatest achievement?
I think we have kind of talked about from the start of this conversation to the end, like, what does your leadership path look like? And I think one thing that I do feel like is a personal achievement for myself is just in thinking about my first independent school job as a learning specialist to where I am now, and really being able to lean on the wisdom of others and opportunities that were presented to me to grow and develop to be able to be in this position right now and feel like I have the support and the skills and the tools to be a successful leader. Like, just, I think that is just such an amazing thing, just thinking about where I started my career and where I am now. And certainly I'm not not even near the end of my career, but I think I feel such excitement for that journey, just like reflecting. I think this has been a wonderful conversation and having the opportunity to reflect on my professional journey and the things that I've learned. I think I'm extremely passionate about leadership development and supporting early career educators and those aspiring to school leadership. And so I feel fortunate to be in a place where I have experience and stories, and I love to share that. And I love to be very generous with my time and my experiences and sharing like, hey, I did this thing. It didn't really go well, but here's what not to do. So when you were a school leader, you can try. Like, I think one achievement is having gone from learning specialist to school administrator and that path, and then just being able to share it with others.
That's lovely. Thank you so much, Ryann, for joining us. We appreciate you being here and sharing your wonderful insights.
Thank you, Brenna. This has been the highlight of my day and such a pleasure to be here and to talk with you. And this is one of my favorite podcasts. And I didn't mention it because here we are. But yes, this has been such an honor to talk with you today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to NAIS Member Voices. You can find some related NAIS resources from this episode by visiting nais.org/membervoices. You can also keep an eye on that page for information about past and upcoming episodes. Please be sure to subscribe to Member Voices wherever you get your podcasts so that you don't miss an episode. And go back and listen to previous episodes you might have missed. If you have feedback for us, please leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform to let us know how we're doing. You can also send us your thoughts and suggestions on what you'd like to hear on a future podcast by emailing membership@nais.org.